The table shows the number of cups of coffee sold in a particular cafe and the outside temperature recorded over a period of 2 weeks. And this information, we're going to plot this in a scatter graph. So let's have a look to see how that works. So here I've got my title of my scatter graph, number of cups of coffee sold versus outside temperature. Then on my y-axis, I've got the number of coffees sold, and on my x-axis, I've got the temperature in degrees Celsius. So I'm going to show you how to plot the first 2 points. When it was one day, when it was 5 degrees outside, the cafe sold 120 coffees. So let's have a look. 5 degrees on my x-axis, and I go up to 120, and I plot this point here. So on the second day, we recorded a temperature of 12 degrees Celsius, and on that day, 70 coffees were sold. So here we go to 12 on our temperature, and we plot our point at 70 degrees. So now here, I've fast forwarded a bit, and I've plotted all the points here. And we can see that there is a bit of a trend going on here. But this point doesn't seem to follow the trend. This one here. This point has got a particular name. It is called an outlier. It is a point that's far removed from the rest of the points in the graph. So now I'm going to draw something that's called a line of best fit. There we go. I've drawn a line that goes through the cloud of points, and I'm going to make sure that there are more or less the same number of points on top of the line as below it. Your line might look very different from mine. So we're now currently working at grade 3 or 4, grade 3 to 4. So let's have a look at that type of correlation then. When we have a look at that line of best fit, we can see that it is downward sloping. And a downward sloping line is indeed indicating that there is a relationship between the number of coffee sold and the outside temperature. And that relationship, oops, there is a bit in the way here, is called a correlation. And correlation is the relationship between 2 sets of data in a scatter graph. It can either be positive or negative. So my 2 sets of data here is the numbers of coffee sold and the temperature in degrees Celsius. So it says here it can either be positive or negative. Let's see what that means on the next slide. Here we go. We've got 5 examples of scatter graphs. And we're going to have a look to see what correlation there is, what relationship there is between one set of variables and the other set. Here we can see that, like with our example about the coffees, that the points seem to be sloping downwards. The same as here actually, but here this cloud is bigger. Basically, the spread is larger. So we are going to say that this represents a weak negative correlation, whereas this one represents a strong negative correlation. So let's have a look at the upwards sloping graphs. Again, here we've got a strong positive correlation because those points seem to be aligned quite closely together. Whereas here again, we can see an upward trend, but our points are quite scattered in our graph. So we call this a weak positive correlation. Sometimes there's no correlation at all. Sometimes you've got 2 sets of variables and you've got just all those points scattered around in the whole grid. We can't detect a relationship or a correlation. There is no correlation, and as a result, we won't be able to draw a line of best fit.